Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And we are back. WrestleMania is about a week away, and the Juice Box is filled to the brim. I am Juice Springsteen. Once again, here we are in the Juice Box. You can follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen. My Instagram account, Juicy Wrestling Closet. You can also follow this podcast on juicysteen.podbean.com or on iTunes. And if you do listen to it on iTunes, please give it a 5-star review or rating. That would be fantastic. Got a lot of stuff going on in the world of professional wrestling this week, of course, with WrestleMania next Saturday and Sunday. A lot of fun stuff to be discussed. A little bit of an interesting programming note. I do believe next week I will have a solo show doing the predictions for WrestleMania. However, I will also be dropping a separate episode, which I don't know what the title of it will be yet, but it will be a little bit of a departure from the normal format on this show. We're going to do a fan-centric debate type show where I'm going to be moderating a couple of topics. I'm going to be talking about some certain topics with two close wrestling fans of mine. We have Cross and Donnie. They will be on the show, bantering, having a good time, going back and forth, as I've seen them do in person. And I do believe that on this platform, I think it could get a little heated. I will be going over a couple of topics. Firstly, we'll be discussing just how who they are, their relation to me, and a little bit of a background on their fandom, because I'd like to do some sort of, just a little introspective on who they are as a fan. And then going forward, if they were to come back on the show, which I'd love to have them back on the show after we get them on the first time, they'll have a little bit of that background so everybody can follow along. And I think it'll be a fun little show. We're going to debate a few topics. We might get into some predictions for WrestleMania. We'll see. We'll see how long the show goes. It could be a long one. I always say it's going to be a short one here, and we all know how that turns out, 45 to 50 minutes every single week. But I think the moderator debate format could be fun, especially with a couple of wrestling fans that have a passion for this industry as I do. And it would be just the beginning, because I've got plenty of wrestling fan friends, whatever you want to call them. And I think it'll be a fun experience. So whenever I know the name, unless I might just release the show as that, it'll be promoted as such going forward. And I look forward to being that moderator for those maniacs going back and forth about the hottest topics in pro wrestling. Let's get into the week that was. Let's just kick things off with last night on Dynamite, where the highly anticipated quote-unquote dream match, I say quote-unquote because late last week, after this show was released, the episode from last week, it was announced that Kenny Omega would be facing El Hijo del Vikingo. I butchered that, but it's a tough pronunciation. Who is a AAA star. I believe he's a champion in AAA. I don't have that on hand, but they were supposed to wrestle, I believe, 2 years ago, and it never happened. And then, of course, magician Tony Khan made it happen last night. and it was a damn good match. Now, I was critical of the promotion or lack thereof in regards to the build for this match, purely because I was aware of Vikingo, but it just never occurred to me that AEW presented it as dream match, right? Like as a dream match. Yet I would wager 90% of the casual audience that would tune into an AEW Dynamite might not be aware of who this guy was. So you would think you're going to get a promo package, a highlight package, something to that effect. And all that was really done in between the time it was announced and the match was a 28-second brief promo video dubbed over by Excalibur showing the highlights of Elio. But be that as it may, it was a fantastic match, crazy athleticism, and it showed in the ratings that came out 954,000 for AEW Dynamite this week, which is pretty good. The last week's rating was 852, so a bump of over 100,000 viewers, which is pretty cool to see. And it shows that Elio was a draw. The demo is also up 0.06, which I think is a nice increase for AEW. Now the key is, will AEW build on this momentum going forward next week? We'll see. Not sure what other stuff is on the docket for AEW to maybe boost that rating next week. I don't know if they've announced anything in particular that would do that yet. I know they always announce, almost everything, but this was specifically a quote unquote dream match. And I think it did deliver. So that was the main events. Jon Moxley versus Stu Grayson. We had Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, and Sting against Butcher, Blade, and Kip Sabian, which was fun. Sting at 64 years old he's just having a career resurgence in AEW, and I think when he has his last match, or as long as we know he will have a final match, I would hope that in between then or in the last match he goes back to the blonde Surfer Sting look. I think it would be a fun way to bridge the last gap for his career. But Sting doing a little Orange Cassidy action in the ring, very cool. After the match, though, this is the more important piece of business. Darby Allin looked up at the Double or Nothing sign that was in the rafters, indicating he might be still invested in that AEW title match at Double or Nothing. Could be a fatal four-way. Nothing has been announced thus far. That pay-per-view comes at the end of May. We are not into April yet, so we will see what happens eventually with that. But Darby, of course, being a part of that with Jungle Boy, Starks, and obviously MJF. Top Flight versus the Guns was a fun little match. I cannot present this any better. The Guns theme music is my favorite in AEW. And after the match, FTR came out and they were like desperate to get another shot at the AEW tag titles. And after vehemently getting denied by the Guns, FTR stated, hey, if we don't win this match for the titles, we will leave AEW. And then the Guns literally spit in FTR's faces and fled the ring. Of course, this is huge because their contracts, I do believe, are up. But if they were to win the titles, it would be, it would kind of lead you to believe that they're not done with AEW. Obviously, they wouldn't be done with AEW, but it would lead you to believe that like this was just for this angle. But I don't know if FTR is the next champ, the right choice for the next champion. FTR had such a great run, but I like that the titles were on the Acclaimed. I like that they're on with the Guns now. I like that they are building other teams. So if FTR were to get the titles back and not leave, obviously, and for some reason they get a shot to put over another newer tag team, then I like that move, giving those titles to FTR once again. Hook defeated Stokely Hathaway, which was fun. That's all it needed to be. And Hathaway is pretty much, he's doing a Bobby Heenan-esque role, and I think he does a great job at it. And, complete with ring gear, although it looked kind of, instead of the Weasel gear, it kind of looked like Nation of Domination inspired gear, which is pretty badass. We had Adam Cole being confronted by Daniel Garcia. And it seems like next Wednesday will be the first match for Adam Cole in quite a long time. And it will be against Daniel Garcia. We'll see how that transpires. I would assume Adam Cole gets a victory there. But the thread throughout the night was that the Blackpool Combat Club was getting more work as heels, and they were involved in a lot of the action on Dynamite. Sky Blue lost to Tony Storm, and then Rio came with a lead pipe to help Sky Blue, which is pretty cool. And I don't know if that means anything, but another women's match in the death slot at 9:20 to 9:30. So take that how you want. But of course, the main event. This match was pretty damn good. And I don't know. The end kind of puzzled me. Omega did win. Omega won. One-winged angel. But after the match, Hangman Page came out to help after. So the Young Bucks were attacked earlier in the night. And then Blackpool Combat Club, obviously, it seemed as if that was who perpetrated that attack. And after the main event, the BCC attacked Kenny, and Adam Page, Hangman coming out in an ambulance to help Kenny, but Don Callis got in the ring, faked he faked a bump. He sold as if Hangman hit Don Callis, but I think at some point Kenny's going to realize that Don is probably more of a problem at this point than a solution, and we might get some more traditional babyface Kenny Omega, which would be pretty nice to see, as Don Callis has been a great invisible hand for him. But I think at some point, if Kenny wants to be a true single star as a babyface, which I think they could pull off, then you got to have Don Callis away from that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I thought it was a fun Dynamite. Again, they got boosted in their ratings by over 100,000 viewers, which was pretty cool. And I was happy to see that rating news come in. As now, I'm going to go through some of the WWE of it all. Again, as we go with the show being on Friday, I normally will cover Raw. I won't cover as much on SmackDown unless something crazy happens, which it did. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn finally hugged it out on SmackDown. But on Raw, they got together and the Usos came out, and it was a challenge extended and a challenge accepted. And we finally have, for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team titles, the Usos will defend those titles against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, which 5 years ago, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens got to be a part of another crazy match with Daniel Bryan in his first match since retiring, in a tag with him and Shane McMahon versus KO and Sami. And I will get to Kevin Owens because this is something I wanted to touch on, is that Kevin Owens has had such a wild and crazy, interesting, dramatic WrestleMania history. And I mean, and the guys that Kevin Owens has gotten to work with at WrestleMania is pretty intense. If you see that, I'm gonna go over it right now here. And now of course he's 3-3 at WrestleMania. That really is irrelevant, but listen to the track record of matches for Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. Of course, the first match that he got to be in at WrestleMania was against Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Stardust, Miz, Sin Cara, and Zack Ryder in an Intercontinental Championship ladder match in which Zack Ryder was victorious. Of course, this was my first WrestleMania in Dallas, and it was an incredible event. But the guys that are in this match, if you look at where they're at now, it's such a bizarre, and this is 7 years ago now. But it's really bizarre when you look at it and you take a closer examination. I mean, you have Zack Ryder, of course, who won the title. He, Matt Cardona, is killing it on the independent scene and has been doing that since he was let go from WWE in 2020. And for the record, Brian Myers is doing well for himself as well. Both those guys, locked in, major wrestling figure podcast. Something they do, pretty much a slight inspiration for this podcast getting off the ground. Those guys are just really nice guys, and they're very interesting and passionate about not just wrestling, but just a lot of stuff. Figures, of course, but a lot of passionate topics come up in their shows. And it's just nice to hear. It's almost as if they're just friends of yours. So shout out to those guys. So Zack Ryder's in this match. Of course, he won. But you've also got Sin Cara, who I don't know what he's doing these days. Stardust, Cody Rhodes. He's in the main event of this year's WrestleMania. The Miz, hosting this year's WrestleMania. Dolph Ziggler, who most recent thing that he has done has won the NXT title. And then, of course, Sami Zayn, who Kevin Owens will be tagging with this year at WrestleMania. So he's in a ladder match at 32. He wrestles Chris Jericho at Mania 33 and wins the U.S. title. Then, like I said, tags with Sami against Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon. At 36, he wrestled Seth Rollins, in which he dove off the WrestleMania sign in the PC. Crazy. He fought Sami Zayn at 37 and won. He was in the main event of night 1 against Stone Cold Steve Austin in Steve Austin's first match since 2003. So the crazy match listing and history of Kevin Owens at WrestleMania is a wild one when you stand back and think of it. So I could not be happier for KO. I had the privilege of interviewing him in 2014 before a Ring of Honor show in Pittsburgh, and I'll never forget that. I also got to interview Kevin Kelly that night. But the next year, I filmed an interview that he was doing with Justin LaBar, and he remembered me, which is pretty cool. So KO has always been one of my favorites. I loved his work in Ring of Honor, PWG for a long time, and was thrilled when him and Sami Zayn got to NXT. I remember watching that first NXT show with both of those guys on it, with KO debuting and then Sami winning the title, KO celebrating with him, only to turn on him. Just they said it quite often that they are destined to do this forever, and it shows now here in 2023, and they will be in one of the higher profile matches of WrestleMania. It can be argued. So I'm stoked for this. Now, I do think that this title match at WrestleMania should be a ladder match. I just think it ups the stakes, and it's a way the Usos could lose and not necessarily, be hurt in their character development or what have you. I know that's silly to say because it doesn't really matter, but just losing in a ladder match is different than being pinned in the center of the ring. So I just think it would be and of course the Usos in a ladder match. You had Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who had a history of ladder matches with the Briscoes, which would be a nice little tribute. KO was in a ladder match at WrestleMania 32, like I said. They had PWG ladder matches, Ring of Honor, Ladder War. I just think that type of match between those four guys would really just be the perfect match of styles, of just talent, and overall a great presentation. I think it could steal the show on one of the nights, although I still think that Seth Rollins and Logan Paul will steal the show whatever night they're on, which I do believe, as I will get to this in a second, but the only matches that have been confirmed for any specific night have been the main event of night 2, which is clearly Cody versus Roman, and then a match, we don't know where it will be, but on night 1 will be Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins, which I think is because Logan Paul's birthday is on April 1st. So why not wrestle on your 28th birthday and a crazy high profile match at WrestleMania? I mean, why not, right? That's where you'd want to be. So looking forward to that, as I've been saying. Let's get back to Raw. And yeah, Raw was a good show. Montez Ford and Austin Theory had a competitive match, and Theory won. And now this is the interesting part. Montez Ford, who a lot of fans seem to think that he's the next up. He's the next big solo star for WWE, and I tend to agree with that sentiment. But I also don't know how they will get out of the Street Profits tag team, not cleanly, but just at all. Like, what organic way can you get these guys apart without, making it without having to have someone go heel and it be lame, or, but they had no spot at WrestleMania, and it was announced now 2 separate WrestleMania Showcase Fatal 4-Way tag matches, which include the women's tag match is Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez versus 3 to be determined teams, and then the WrestleMania Showcase Fatal 4-Way tag for the men will be the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy, although Otis seems to be, not necessarily focused with Chad Gable, but I think it's great storytelling. They will be taking on the Viking Raiders, of course, and the odd couple of Braun Strowman and Ricochet, although Braun Strowman has had bizarre tag partners before, and it never failed him. See WrestleMania 34. So I think that the move would be Montez Ford turning heel at WrestleMania if the match doesn't go their way, if it doesn't go in a way that they, plan on, or maybe Dawkins accidentally hits Ford or vice versa. I just think this is a spot, this is a moment for Montez to get pissed and for Montez to maybe want to break away from the team and give him a singles push. I think he's got he obviously has the talent, but it's will he get the opportunities? I think under the Triple H regime he can get those opportunities, but you gotta have something, that makes sense. You gotta have the right story. You gotta make it worth, doing the turn. So we'll see how that goes in a couple of weeks. Mustafa Ali and Omos had a match, and of course it was just a squash. But next week we're going to get the weigh-in between Omos and Brock Lesnar. And, I haven't necessarily been critical of it being Brock versus Omos, because I do get it. If Brock's on his way out eventually here, and he, wants to put someone over, I don't see. And again, you don't need to win a match to be put over. Although, as a guy of Omos's stature, I find it difficult for him to lose a match and still be put over in a solid way, because I do think that the only purpose of this match it's kind of a two-pronged with the weigh-in. I think the weigh-in is only set up to really know how big Omos is, so that when Brock Lesnar inevitably lifts him up and delivers a hellacious F5 to Omos, that it's going to be all the more of a spectacle. And, of course, the biggest spectacle of all time, WrestleMania. So I think that's in the cards as well. I think it's going to be an interesting match. I think if the match goes, I say 6 to 8 minutes in ring, then Omos Brock Lesnar could be a success, and it could get done what they need to get done. If it goes any longer than that, you're going to run into some problems, and you don't want a Brock Lesnar match to get any boos, because Brock would not take to that, I don't think, very well. Especially when he's trying to get a younger guy over. I would think he'd want to take it as seriously as possible. Hell, maybe Omos is going to pull something out we're not seeing here. But again, we'll get closer to Mania. We'll discuss in depth the predictions and just how we think this match could go. So, hey, we're talking about it. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, Seth Rollins and Logan Paul. It's going to be a crazy match. Logan Paul was doing some good mic work. I really think that his mic work has just improved every time he's gotten a hold of a mic. In ring on on such a massive platform stage. I know he's done YouTube, and I know he's been all over the place, and he's done this and he's done that and blah 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 blah. But being in a WWE ring in front of like 20,000 people live, and you're live in front of how many people on TV, and to not mess something up, and to just be smooth, and to be on and good and like, funny as a heel, but like serious for your character, it's tough. It's a lot to balance. And for a guy who's really kind of new into this realm of entertainment, sports entertainment, I think he does a great job. So I've said it a million times. I think they're going to kill it at WrestleMania. So we will see how that turns out. We still don't have a Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio match confirmed yet. It could happen during the Hall of Fame ceremony, but I've also seen where some might think that that's pushing it and it would ruin the ceremony for Rey. But I think that is the exact type of heat that you would want with this match. I think this is the perfect opportunity for Dom to get and goad his father into a match. And I just don't think it's in bad taste because they already have publicly stated they didn't, quote, want this match to ever happen. I'm not going to fight my son. And now that's part of the promo package, like the promo work that they're doing. You know, every time, no matter what Dominic does or says, Ray's like, I'm not fighting you, so just get over it, you know. But yeah, I think it's still inevitable. I still think that Dom and Ray are going to have that match, which could be one of the more anticipated matches at WrestleMania if it happens. I would just prefer if they were to announce it a little bit ahead of time so that we could get excited for it. But we're a week and change away, so it'll probably happen at the Hall of Fame. So, Rhea and Bayley had a solid match, but it didn't really do too much. They had Damage Control come out, and then Lita, Becky, and Trish came out, and it was just kind of setting up all the different feuds that everybody's in, and it was just kind of there. But we got a nice GIF of Becky Lynch eating popcorn. So add that to the Big E eating popcorn. Great meme that we've had over the last couple of years to work with. Ricochet and Chad Gable had a solid match, probably the best match of the night. And just the fact that we have Otis out there doing this Maximum Male Models thing. I mean, I always say that the easiest or more obvious choices in wrestling, if they're done just because they're obvious or the easy decision, doesn't mean it's a bad decision. And then sometimes I think more obvious the better. And Otis having cucumbers on his eyes as like a relaxation, and they fell off of his eyes, and he just proceeded to eat them. Like, that stuff is so obvious of a funny bit, but they easily could have just not thought of that. So I like that they did think of it and went through with it, because I think Maximum Male Models, even though maybe not getting the appropriate time on TV, I think they're getting enough time right now for how big it is, because it's still kind of getting its footing. There's no real matches with these guys yet. It's still just kind of an angle, but we're getting there. I think we'll get a fun Maximum Male Models interaction at WrestleMania. I don't know with who, but I think it would be an interesting segment, to say the least. Asuka and Bianca won a tag match, but that was really not much. Unfortunately, the Asuka-Bianca match is really at the low end of my most looked forward to matches at WrestleMania. That's not to say that the match won't be a great match. In fact, I do think in ring it could be one of the better matches overall. But going into the whole thing, there's really not much story there, especially considering I just don't see. There isn't much story. Asuka won the Elimination Chamber, and here she gets the match. So it's kind of like you had to force something in, and Asuka's been her weird self and doing a little Papa Shango blue liquid coming out of her mouth, like just weird Asuka stuff. And like I get it, and it's on TV, and this Bray Wyatt's not on TV doing weird stuff, so you got to have someone doing some otherworldly behavior. So, I mean, that I like, but in regards to actual story, I don't know how much is there, but like I said, I think the match could be something worthwhile. The main event segment was Cody and Roman in the ring, and of course, the Tribal Chief was not alone for this segment, and I really like this. The promos have been pretty good overall for this feud, and it has been refreshing to see, even though over the course of the last couple of weeks, it's been, back and forth on, well, is Cody really going to win? I said last week, I mentioned that one of my friends, Ticket Drew Baydala, Andrew Baydala on Twitter, had stated and told me that in general, he thought that Roman was going to be one of these big highlights for the overseas stuff, with Money in the Bank being in London, with the Backlash pay-per-view being in Puerto Rico. Why wouldn't Roman just be the flag bearer, be the champion for those events? Why wouldn't you want to capitalize on that? Yet, it doesn't seem like he's being promoted for at least Backlash or the SmackDown in Puerto Rico preceding Backlash. Yet, I still find it, right now, I say it's 65-35 in favor of Cody winning the title at WrestleMania. I really do think that The Rock has an outside shot at making an appearance at this show. We'll get into that next week, but I do think there's room for it. I don't know. This match has to honestly be flawless. I don't mean in ring necessarily from a technical standpoint, but every facet of the storytelling needs to culminate in the most perfect dovetail way possible. And what I mean by that is this story has been going for almost 3 years now. So to me, I think if you're going to have Cody take the title from Roman and it's going to end this long, long storyline and title reign, because the storyline might still continue depending. I think if you're going to have Cody take that title and this is the match and this is the show and this is the moment for him, I think you need to maximize what happens in the match. I think you need to see, depending, because I would almost assume that the Usos KO Sami match would be night one. I don't know if it'll main event because I think Charlotte and Rhea will main event night one. Some might think that's the wrong move, but with two women's title matches and one of those being the Royal Rumble winner, I think they deserve the main event spot, and it's unfortunate that the KO Sami Usos thing, has arguably the better story, really has a story and has had a story for a long time. But for the current product, I think it's going to lend itself to being in the background because it is just for the tag titles at the end of the day. And you've got a world title. You have two women's world title matches that will probably, in certain circles, be looked at as more important, right or wrong. I think I don't mind the Charlotte Rhea match being last on night one if Rhea's going to win the title. I really don't mind it at all. But hey, if you made the tag title match a ladder match, it could be argued that it could be a great night one closer. It could be an opener. I don't know. That's also the fun part about WrestleMania is what if you have a slate of matches, especially with two nights. What matches do you start each night with? What is the best way to open up either night? But Cody and Roman having this promo battle, and Roman, I'm going to botch the quote. I'm just going to try to paraphrase it. But he basically said, you ran away from this company to create your own company. And yeah, you did. And it was successful. But you could not even get over in your own company. And it was great. I love that. And I love, again, everything that Reigns and Rhodes do almost flawless. They're at the top of their game. They're generational talents. I mean, clearly the bloodline, Dustin Rhodes. Again, the lineage is there for both of these guys, but they are really on completely opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of promo work, in-ring work, how they carry themselves, stuff like that. And that's why I think it's a match made in heaven for WrestleMania main event. I think it's a great culmination here. And again, we'll get to it next week, but I think you got to pull the trigger on Cody after all this time. So we'll go through a little bit more here as we close out this episode. I'm just going to go through some random points of contention. As I said, they announced the extra showcase matches for WrestleMania, the Fatal 4-Way Tags. I think those will be, lack of a better term, a good showcase for these teams to have a spot on WrestleMania in front of a bunch of people in the crowd. Could be worse, so I like that. The Hall of Fame announced, so we have Rey Mysterio, we have the Great Muta, and we now get in the celebrity wing one of the most important figures to ever bridge the gap between pro wrestling, pop culture, sports entertainment, theater, kayfabe, all that. That's one Andy Kaufman, who famously an angle with Jerry Lawler, and that's, I mean, if you don't know the history of Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler, a lot of mainstream, like Bad Bunny, Logan Paul, Mike Tyson, Karl Malone, Dennis Rodman, Floyd Mayweather. I mean, you could go the list of celebrities in different walks of life that have ever been featured. Jay Leno, in wrestling and in angles in wrestling, but it cannot be argued that Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler really set the tone for what wrestling in the mainstream could be. And yeah, I just think it's a great choice. I don't know who's going to induct him. If Jerry Lawler's health is, able to be taken to a stage to where he could do it, I would love to see him do it. I also think Jim Carrey could do it, considering he played him in Man on the Moon. But I was just thrilled to see that Andy Kaufman is going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. The SummerSlam logo got revealed, which is pretty much a car-centric logo. I mean, they're going to be in Detroit. It's going to be awesome. I don't know if they're going to do some sort of, direct Ford, sponsorship or branding for this. I think it'd be cool if they did. Maybe they'll give away a car at the show. I don't know. Do something fun. But the logo is pretty dope. I was thrilled with it. Looking forward to that show in August. And, I'll kind of close with this. Now, when we get to the, I don't know what I'm going to call the debate. When we get to that part of the programming next week, it'll be named. But one of the debate topics, spoiler alert, will be CM Punk and whether he will ever come back anywhere in wrestling ever again. Because one of the two guys, both guys that I will be talking to are pretty invested with CM Punk, but Cross in particular, quite honestly could be one of the biggest CM Punk fans I've ever met or known, and he will have a lot to say. But it was actually this past week, it was revealed that FTR had hung out with Punk, and just, rumors circulate, and Punk will post this, and FTR's doing work shoot stuff, and everything's cryptic and no one knows anything. And then on Thursday, Dave Meltzer put out a little statement about how the Mox Punk weird squash title match happened and why that happened. And CM Punk kind of took all those guys to task by saying, now this was a post that he posted on Instagram and then deleted, but he did say he wasn't cleared to come back to wrestle. The plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view. He listened to Jon Moxley's Rocky 3 idea, even though CM Punk has stated for over 12 years that he has never seen a Rocky film. He said, Punk said he thought the idea sucked, but if Tony Khan wanted it to happen, he would do it, whatever. Mox said he wouldn't lose. All this stuff is that it gets to the match was going to happen. Tony Khan wanted it to happen, and that's what he wanted to happen. And Punk said, that's fine, but I need to be cleared for TV, or cleared for this match. They said it would be a squash, so he didn't need to be cleared, and it ended up being a squash. The last quote on this says, I'll never put a company above my health ever again. Because the WWE and the Z-Pack and the Dr. Amann and Colt Cabana, all that garbage, that was such a huge point of contention as why he left WWE. He goes to AEW. He gets hurt because he had to jump into the crowd because he couldn't get enough of the fans that still loved him even though he turned his back on them all. And now he's hurt, and that, I get it. Your health should come before any company, but you back yourself into certain corners. What do you think is going to happen? If you have a title and they need to get the title, it's like Brett. Like, the title needed to come off of you. It's not going to... You're not Tony Khan. You don't really get to say what is going to happen. You don't have Hogan's creative control card. If you're not cleared, let it be a squash. When you're cleared, come back and have a match. I don't know why everything has to be so dramatic, and I get it. It's wrestling, and I don't know. I wasn't backstage. I'm not Dave Meltzer. I never claimed to be a backstage guy. I'm just analyzing this from me seeing perspectives from everybody else and trying to formulate my own opinion. But when I see stuff like this, it just makes me think, who's the real problem? Is it CM Punk? Is it Tony Khan being more of a mark? Was MJF? Was it MJF calling Tony Khan a mark a shoot? Was it a worked shoot? Or was Tony Khan right? Should Tony Khan have wanted Punk to work? Even if it's a squash and he's not cleared, should he have even wanted that to happen? Could he have just taken the belt from Punk? There's so many questions. I can't wait to debate, or to be the moderator of the debate between Donnie and Cross next week before we get to WrestleMania. We'll talk a lot about CM Punk. We'll have a lot of interesting conversations, I'm sure. And you'll hear a lot of yelling, hopefully not too loud, because it will blow out the speakers in everybody's vehicles if they're listening to this in a vehicle. We all don't want that. It's bad enough that we have to listen to me for 45 to 50 minutes every week, but now we got two other guys doing it. And they'll be feisty, I'll tell you that. They will definitely be ready to duke it out. So I'll be looking forward to that next week. Another great episode. Love doing this show. This is the best time of year to be a wrestling fan. And we are about a week and change away from wrestling fans' most look forward to weekend. It was great enough having Sunday as WrestleMania. It really was, for so long. And then I got to go to a WrestleMania, and it made the weekend even better. And now we got 2 nights of WrestleMania. So even if I'm not going to WrestleMania this year in LA, unfortunately, it was going to cost way too much to just go to one night of the event. And I figure, screw it. I'll probably try to go to Mania next year as it's in Philadelphia. A little bit of an easier trek for me, but I get to look forward to just sitting at home and enjoying 2 back-to-back nights of 3 to 4 hours of WrestleMania, and it's going to be exciting, thrilling, controversial, captivating, scintillating, and it's the granddaddy of them all, and I cannot wait to watch. So, this has been the Juice Box. Once again, rate this 5 stars on iTunes if you get the chance. It'd be greatly appreciated. Follow my Instagram. We're doing the hashtag 30 Days of Wrestling tees on there, and I've had some really nice shirts I've been posting lately, so you want to catch up on that. A lot of great t-shirts and content out there from other guys as well, not just me, but that's where you can look at my shirts there. And then, as always, Juicy Steen on Twitter. Let's banter, let's debate, let's talk pro wrestling. This has been the Juice Box. I'm Juice Springsteen, and I will see you guys next week as we are so close to paving the road to WrestleMania. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.